What's going on, guys? And welcome to this episode of the Sonics Link podcast. It's your host, Adam Tatunji, back at you guys again with another episode. Today, I am with Chris Berdan. Thank you so much for hopping on the show, my man. How you doing?
Good about yourself. Thanks for having me.
Not too bad, not too bad. So, just introduce yourself a little bit, kind of to the audience. Let us know a little bit about your background, so we can kind of get started. We'll go from there. Okay?
Yeah, sure thing. I've been in IT for almost 20 years now. I don't want to age myself, but about 20 years, starting being a kid, just kind of building PCs here and there, and then moving into the fintech realm. So I've been in fintech on and off for about 15 years now. First starting with American Express at one of their B2B sales satellite headquarters, then moving into becoming the vice president of a bank in just outside of Madison, Wisconsin. And then my wife and I moved out to Las Vegas, where I've become the director of information technology for Clark County Credit Union. So that's basically me in a nutshell over the past 20 years.
Really cool. So, kind of guide us into your thought process, like when you kind of look at the world of cybersecurity, technology, where it's headed. What are the first couple things that come to mind?
So the first thing, especially being a financial institution, we are heavily regulated, heavily scrutinized by multiple agencies. So the first thing is protecting our members' data, first and foremost, because our members' data is also our members' money. And the cliche is money makes the world go round, right? So if we can't protect our members' data, then what are we doing? And I think it doesn't even have to be a financial institution, right? Anybody that has customers, anybody that has members, anybody that has any sort of personal identifiable information, make sure that that data is encrypted, backed up, and then backed up some more, just so that way, in case the worst case scenario happens, you are able to then grab that data and kind of be able to hobble along a little bit. But when it comes to cybersecurity, protecting our members' data is number one, and it's the first thing I think about in the morning. Last thing I think about before I go to bed is can we and have we done what we're supposed to do to make sure that those people that trust us as a financial institution, did we do everything we could to make sure that their data and their money was safe?
So, how do you stay up to date with your skills? Like, what do you do to keep yourself sharp?
Well, again, being a credit union and being heavily regulated, we have multiple audits per year. Every department in the credit union has multiple audits. And one thing that auditors look at is ongoing education, whether that be through going to webinars, seminars, boot camps, etc. Just kind of trying to keep up as best as possible in that route. Obviously, then there's the organizations online, the news magazines and so forth that have all that stuff. One thing I do have is on the top of my Outlook inbox, I have like probably about 15 or 16 RSS feeds that just kind of funnel data into Outlook and kind of start my morning every day going through those, seeing if there's any alerts. And then also we have a pretty cool SIM tool that has alerts that can show us 0 days and everything like that. But I would say the ongoing education is really something that auditors and regulators are really kind of buckling down on when it comes to financial institutions, just because there have been quite a few that have not kind of kept up with that, some smaller mom and pop type financial institutions. I don't want to name any names, but there have been plenty that just really didn't keep up with the times. And unfortunately, they got hacked or, lost member data, had ransomware, etc.
So, I know you said protecting user data is like your number one thing that
Mhm.
keeps you up at night, gets you going in the morning. Is there anything right now that's kind of like making you go, oh man, like other banks are not seeing this, like specifically when it comes to protecting user data, that maybe you're like viewing from your end and you're worried and concerned that everybody else may not have the same perspective that you might have? Just curious if there's anything to dig on that arena at all.
Yeah, so the one thing that I'll say, and it's kind of cliched if you watch any kind of the mainstream media about, Russia, Ukraine, kind of those Eastern Bloc countries, what people don't realize just how often their systems are being hit on a monthly basis. Being in IT and having, partial control of our firewall, we can see those stats. And, in monthly, we're getting hit on average, 50,000 plus times by bad actors in Russia, by bad actors in Ukraine. So I think the one thing that a lot of people don't understand, and maybe some people in security do, but I think the larger organization as a whole, whether it be middle management, management, executive board, what have you, I don't think they realize the scope of what we have to protect every single day because we are getting hit thousands and thousands and thousands of times on our perimeter trying to find those holes and keeping up and making sure that we have that umbrella, that security umbrella kind of that stays intact. That's probably number one of what we have to do. And I think a lot of people understand that that happens. I don't think they understand the scope of just how often and how continuous it is.
Is there like a specific like enemy that you guys have that's like a constant like, oh man, they're always at us?
Yeah, it's those Eastern Bloc countries. There'd be the Russias, the Ukraines, basically those old Soviet countries.
But
Um,
what are they looking for?
they're just trying to find holes into our system, whether it's to kind of get their fingers into our system and then poke around even more. And a lot of times it's just testing defenses, right? It's really just seeing because we're a financial institution. We're not a large institution. We're a little over $1 billion, so we're kind of a small fish in a big pond. But that's still a lot of money. And being a financial institution, we're going to be, very heavily hit when it comes to black hats. So that's really what they're doing is they're just testing every credit union and every bank and every mortgage company and every company out there that handles some sort of cash transaction, right? That's what they're doing. So it's not just us. And thankfully, I work at an organization that's willing to put the time and money and resources into making sure that our data is protected. And I just think that a lot of people just do not kind of understand just how widespread this issue is. And unfortunately, there's only so much you can do to protect yourself, making sure everything is up to date, making sure you have that security umbrella, making sure that you have multiple layers of security enabled. That's really what you got to do. And then a lot of times it's hope and pray for the best.
Do you think will ever come a time where like cybersecurity will become like a necessary spend? Like where like everybody's like, oh my God, like they look at it like they spend money that when they spend it into marketing, that type of thing.
I mean it should have been that way for the past 15 years. Really. That's what it should have been. I've worked at multiple places where it was yeah, we were a, uh, we weren't revenue generating, I'll say. That's kind of the nice way to say it. And the one thing is, when it comes to cybersecurity, think of it this way. Do you want to spend 300 grand on this product over the next 3 years, or do you want to pay out a $5 million ransom? And it's just one of those things where, yeah, it's a necessary expense. It has been for 15 years, if not longer. Thankfully, though, I think a lot of organizations, especially sound organizations and ones that are kind of scrutinized, financial institutions, mortgage companies, et cetera, those that have the government come in and kind of really dig their hands and peek behind the curtain. Um, yeah, it's become a necessary spend. It has been for a long time, and I think for the most part, people are starting to realize that yes, we aren't going to get any revenue generation from this, but it's also going to plug a lot of holes in the dam. And if we're not plugging those holes, we're going to end up losing more money than we would make anyway.
Yeah, it's like protecting the money you make in a
Yep.
sense. Yeah.
Yep.
Is there one thing that if like you were on a stage talking to like 10,000 of you, like you're like, hey
Hmm.
guys, these are the things that you should be looking at right now. Number one, number two, number three, number four. What would those things be?
Yeah. So, pretty broad question. I think I'll answer it. I think the best I can. So really, the first thing that I always say is Ronald Reagan had a quote about the Soviets that was trust but verify. And in IT, we don't have that luxury. We have to verify, then trust. Um, so really, that is the one thing is when you are onboarding a product or you have an existing product, make sure that that company is up to snuff, whether it's looking at SOC 2s, their financials, et cetera. We do that all the time, especially with our security products that we have just to make sure. I mean, if this company is bleeding money, are they going to be around in the long run? Is this company doing what they have to do with their SOC 2? If they're not, then we have to look somewhere else. The other thing that I would say is And it's a buzzword and it's cliched and nobody really knows what it means yet. But when it comes to AI, it's making the world a lot easier for both good and bad. We have an internal development team here. They use Copilot all the time to help with their scripting and whatever coding they have to do. But if they're doing that, that also means those bad guys are also doing that, right? So making sure that you have some sort of a network scanning machine learning tool that will scan all the nodes on your network for any anomalous activity. We have one. It can annoy our technicians at times just because it can be so kind of finicky, especially when you're doing something new. For instance, today my computer got locked out because I had to reschedule a doctor's appointment and it did not like the website that I was on trying to reschedule that. So I got locked out for about 5 minutes until one of my guys could unlock me. So having that kind of that machine learning capability in the background. And then I think last but not least, for a top three, last but not least would be making sure that you have backups and making sure you have backups of those backups, and then making sure you have some sort of an immutable backup that can't be touched on the network. You know, if it's once a month and then you just deactivate that device that it's on, go for it, right? Redundancy is key in our industry. If you do not have redundancy built in, eventually it will come back to bite you. And that's just the world that we live in. It's not an if it happens, it's when it happens. It will happen to you someday.
Love it, love it. Chris, if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my email is my last name and then my first initial, so Berdan C at ccculv.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn under my name. It's not a common name, so I'm pretty easy to find.
Cool, awesome. Well, thank you so much for hopping on the show, my man. For everybody that's listening, if you guys enjoyed, please remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. All right, peace.
Appreciate it.